these are all of the reasons why I think Peter Parker's Spider-Man is autistic. Hi, pals. Look, all of my timelines are full of Spider-Man Brand New Day content at the moment, and I just had this thought the other night, and I was like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. I can't, I can't not do it. You know. So I started writing a list of why, like, all of the things that make mainly film Peter Parker feel very autistic to me.
That's my opinion!
For anyone who hates this headcanon or topic in general, I think I already included Miles Morales in a video I made a really long time ago now for characters that I headcanon as ADHD. I think a lot of the spider people in all of the different universes are a little bit neurodivergent in some way. But also, I think specifically a lot of them are autistic. But seeing as I am most familiar with the live action films, and I just went and saw Brand New Day and just uploaded my spoiler review of it, I just, yeah, wanted to go through some of the things that I can remember off the top of my head from the three different types of, three different eras, I guess, of Spider Man live action films. How did I start that sentence? I don't remember. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So, this is my list of reasons why I think the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland Spider-Mans are autistic. We're going to start off a little bit slowly, okay? So we're going to start with the special interests of science, technology, photography. I know a lot of people would argue, oh, well, he inherited the like genius from his parents. Yet, do you know what else you can inherit from your parents? Fucking autism. Autism, man. I just think that those specific skill sets and expertise that they all have are showing autism. And also, I did a video recently on parenthood, which had two autistic characters in it, canon autistic characters in it, who are both interested in photography. So go and watch that video. But also, that's just going to be one of my reasons why I feel like Peter Parker is also autistic. For some reason, he specifically is just into photography. Except Tom Holland's one. I don't know what he's doing. This guy has a very unhealthy work life balance. Of course, we're going to go with socially awkward as fuck. I also feel like each of the Spider-Mans have their own like brand of like social awkwardness. Tobey Maguire is quite a typical uncool, unpopular, kind of shy, nerdy guy. He, you know, doesn't really have, none of them really have many friends. They don't really have a social life leading up to becoming Spider-Man. And then when it comes to Andrew Garfield, I feel like his Spider-Man is much more of like a inherent antagonist, socially awkward person. He will always butt into situations that are nothing to do with him. His instant response to people speaking to him is kind of aggressive. It's me, hello. He's kind of inherently suspicious. He's also bullied as well, but his bullying is much more violent opposed to the bullying of Tobey Maguire, which was a lot more like public humiliation kind of vibes. And also, doesn't Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man get flowers for Gwen Stacy, but they get completely fucked up, and he's like, here you go. And then Tom Holland's Spider-Man is, I feel like he's somewhat similar to Tobey Maguire's one a bit, but he is very naive and very sincere. And he's just very excitable. Like, I feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man definitely shows the ADHD that Tom Holland also personally has. He's very excitable about things that interest him and about like seeing his friends and stuff like that. They all spend a lot of time alone. Obviously, generally, the gist of Spider Man is that he has to spend a lot of time alone as Spider Man. He doesn't have like a team, except from the brief moment in time where Tom Holland's one was working with the Avengers or Tony Stark or what the fuck ever. Besides that small blip, they all spend a lot of time alone, even like as Peter Parker. We see a lot of Andrew Garfield's character alone in his room fixing things. Okay, I think this is the same for at least Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland. Their Spider-Mans, Peter Parkers, spend a lot of time alone developing Spider-Man technology before, Tom Holland's Brand New Day, where he develops the biological webs. And yeah, some similarities between Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Mans are partially as the photography. They're both very into photography, which is kind of a reasonably solitary, solo kind of hobby, or at least it can be. A lot of the time you just kind of see, especially in the Tobey Maguire like first film or two, see him off just kind of like taking photos quietly by himself, even though he's like on a school trip or what the fuck ever. And it's a very solitary job that he then has, is being the Spider-Man photographer. He's literally just taking photos of himself as a freelancer, basically, and trying to sell those photos to local newspapers to make some money. He also stops living with Aunt May, so he is then living entirely on his own, a bit like Tom Holland's Spider-Man in Brand New Day after Aunt May's death. But also, yeah, like that was something that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was a bit different, because we also didn't see him past high school. Gwen died, and then they stopped producing the films. So he was still a teenager in high school living with his aunt. But even then, he was still very solitary, spent a lot of time by himself, cooped up in his room. I sort of briefly mentioned it earlier, but like a small non-existent friendship group. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man has one friend and a friend slash girlfriend sometimes. Whatever the fuck was going on with their relationship. Obviously, his best friend then turns into a villain, and he doesn't have any other friends. Andrew Garfield does not have any friends. I don't think he has any friends. His only friend is literally Gwen Stacy. None. None at all.
He does technically have Harry Osborn, but he's also only introduced in the second film, I believe. Like, they kind of lost contact for a few years, I think. It's been a while since I've seen those two films, though.
And then Tom Holland's friendship group obviously is mainly just him and Ned initially, and then becomes MJ in the first film. But even though he is more involved in school activities, like I'm pretty sure they're on like some kind of sciencey team or something, aren't they? I can't remember. It's been a while. And I think I've only watched those films once. But yeah, outside of that, those are his friends. Basically until the times with the Avengers, then everyone's minds are wiped, so he has no friends again. And then people like Frank and Detective DeWolf, was that her name? At least the detective does not know what his face looks like, but Frank does. And I've seen people talking about like their relationship being like when you have like your first job in your early 20s and you just end up being best friends with like a much older co-worker, even though you're not alike at all and wouldn't have been or become friends outside of work. I feel like that's a really good comparison for what their dynamic is like. I also specifically think Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker has PDA autism. So pathological demand avoidance autism. He hates the rules, hates being told what to do by authority. He hates the hierarchy of high school. He does not care about the hierarchy for high school or work a lot of the time. He cares more about what he considers to be right. And that's kind of why I really like his his Peter Parker. He's a bit more like rebellious and rough around the edges, whereas I think Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland's Peter Parkers are a little bit squeaky clean, good boy vibes. And yeah, leading on from that point with Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, I think all of them though have a lot of black and white thinking. A lot of people might call this like justice sensitivity or whatever. As not what that is. It's just kind of having like a really rigid personal set of morals and values. It's hard to change an autistic person's mind about something that they're not ready to change their mind about. So that's what the black and white thinking is, rigid thinking. So yeah, like they have like a very rigid set of morals that they live by. It's not always necessarily right or correct, but they are very, I can't think of what word I want to use besides just rigid again, but they are very rigid about following their own specific set of morals. They are not easily swayed by other people's thoughts and opinions on like how they think Peter Parker or Spider-Man should be acting, especially particularly with Andrew Garfield's character, who did get in trouble quite a lot. He just did not give a fuck, my guy. He's like, I don't care. I think what I did was correct, so fuck you. Another point I would say is thinking more about the minor details rather than the bigger picture. I feel like this really came up in Spider-Man's Brand New Day, and I talked about that a lot more in detail about the specifics of that. But like one example is about his inventions, that he is thinking about the minor details of how to create these inventions for his own personal needs and circumstances in the narrative of that film, but he doesn't really consider or question the further impact of the actions of creating these inventions down the line. So that's the bigger picture aspect of it. He's more so thinking, this will be helpful for me to capture Jean Grey. This will be more helpful for me dealing with my Spider-Man DNA mutating, rather than the fact of those things can be used against all of the people like them. So whilst I said earlier that I feel like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is a very like sullen and suspicious version of an autistic person, he's a guy that's been tricked and hurt too many times. He's learned to just be suspicious of everybody and their intentions. I feel like the other two are the opposite, where they kind of just take everybody at face value. They're quite naive. They're easily taken advantage of by government bodies or, friends who turn on them, which is also the case for Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker. Both his and Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker's slash Spider-Man's are kind of taken advantage by Harry Osborn and his dad numerous times through the narratives. I would also say Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker was kind of taken advantage of by whoever the lizard man is. I can't remember his name, but the guy in the first film who was trying to develop, I don't know whether it was a serum or something, that kind of replicated a lizard's ability to regrow its tail, but for human limbs, which I think is kind of sick in a way, but like, he was so desperate to be doing it mainly for his own selfish reasons that he was more focused on getting it done rather than getting it done right, because he had previously worked with Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker's father. He took this guy at face value of like, well, of course I can trust you. You worked with my dad, and helped him figure out at least part of the formula basically for that particular serum. I'm going to add on as well, like, I feel like there's two sides to this. There's the being unintentionally funny, then also the trying to be funny and nobody finds you funny. I feel like all of them, as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, kind of do this thing where when they are trying to be funny and make jokes, particularly usually it's as Spider-Man, but sometimes not, people just kind of like look at him like, what the fuck? But when he's not trying to be funny, that's when everyone's like, oh wow, that was a good one. Haha, you're so charming. Oh, he's so amusing and clever. But like for the most part, it's just an accident, not being able to read the room or project the right tone for the situation to be either considered serious or funny. And it's one of the reasons why I love Spider-Man. They're all a little bit cringe. Because like I was saying, that when they try to be funny as well, particularly, they're just a little bit cringe. And autistic people are kind of just considered a bit cringe generally. If we lean into our autistic traits of enjoying something like genuinely and purely, instead of masking those kinds of things, it's considered cringe to genuinely feel joy and happiness about things. And it kind of combines with the being a bit socially awkward and having kind of strange interests that other people don't really understand, and why they have little to no friends. I would also say being super sensitive to sensory input. This was like a really big one in Brand New Day as well, in particular, but I feel like it's always kind of been an element of becoming Spider Man generally, that they become more sensitive to sounds, light. I think maybe sometimes even smells. I don't remember. All of the spidey senses are just giving off an autistic sensory sensitivity vibe. And I would maybe even like say that as well, in that opposite direction of becoming less sensitive in some aspects as well, such as pain threshold. Obviously, they're still experiencing pain and they are getting injured so much being Spider Man, but I feel like they are more able to take it when most people would be in screaming, crying agony. They just get up again and carry on the next day kind of vibes. I mean, in Brand New Day, he was covered in fucking bruises when he got in that like sauna, hot, heated pool thing, whatever the fuck that Yelena uses as her office. I wrote down stimming as like a question mark one. I saw somebody mention that they saw the Spider-Man, Spider-Man Brand New Day, saw him hand flapping, but I don't remember that. So if anybody else has seen it, tell me if you remember that at all. But generally, this is one that I couldn't necessarily think of or remember anything super specific outside of obviously like web swinging. I feel like that could be considered as a stimming behavior. I think it's sort of somewhat similar to rocking, which is a very common autistic behavior, like stimming behavior. But yeah, I only put that one in as like I saw a few people say this and I vaguely would say this, but I could not actually think of many examples. So if you can think of other examples, tell me in the comments. Thank you. And obviously, of course, the literal mask he has to wear as Spider Man. Spider Man, the persona that people know more than Peter Parker, and people like more than Peter Parker, and people don't know Peter Parker underneath the Spider-Man mask. Very few people know who he really is, and honestly, even sometimes his friends and family, he's kind of always got some kind of mask on a lot of the time, and it's very rare for a Peter Parker to be able to open up genuinely to somebody, even if he cares a lot about them. It usually tends to involve that person knowing Peter as Peter, but also knowing that Peter Parker is Spider Man. Because if they only know one side, they don't really know him. And I think that kind of goes with a little bit of what happened in Brand New Day, where Jean Grey is like, well, you're either Peter Parker or you are Spider Man. He goes, I am both. I'm both, bitch. I am a whole person. There are also definitely some cases of Peter Parker having RSD, so rejection sensitivity disorder, something like that. I would definitely say Brand New Days, Peter Parker seeing MJ with her new boyfriend is him experiencing RSD. He literally found it so traumatizing to see her with a different man that he has to get the fuck out of that party, and he's like doing dramatic emo Spider-Man swinging in the rain. Could you get more dramatic than that? I don't think so. I would also say as well, like when it comes to the masking in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I feel like in Spider-Man 3 is a really good example. Look, Spider-Man 3 is an iconic film. Don't fight me. But like in Spider-Man 3, when he is under the influence of, is it Venom? I think it's Venom. When he's suddenly super charismatic and everyone loves him and he's really confident and he's doing the salsa with, is that Gwen Stacy that he went on a date with then? When he's not himself, everybody loves him. And you're just like, damn. The fact that they have never been traditionally employed screams autism to me. Obviously, I've already kind of discussed that a little bit with Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. His job is mainly being Spider-Man's photographer and being like a freelance photographer. Mostly he's selling Spider-Man photos, but I think he does do some other photography jobs for magazines and newspapers. But generally, yeah, one, he's a freelancer. He doesn't actually work for anybody. He doesn't have a set schedule for work. Again, we didn't see Andrew Garfield actually get a job, but I feel like there was possibly like a hinting at him maybe going and working for Oscorp if that hadn't all like blown up. Did it literally blow up? I feel like it did. Accidental pun, but he showed that interest in science. Like I said, he helped with creating that serum. Even though it wasn't perfect, he definitely probably could have continued doing that. Gwen Stacy already worked there, so I don't see why he couldn't have worked there at some point. I know part of the plot in film 2 is that they were looking at going to England together, but obviously she fucking dies, so he wouldn't have done that anyway. And obviously he still has an interest in photography. It's just maybe not as obvious and prominent as Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. But I feel like they both took photos for like the school, like not maybe not the school newspaper, but like the yearbook, things like that. I feel like they did a little bit of stuff like that. And yeah, like I complained about in my brand new day video, Tom Holland's Peter Parker just simply does not have a job. There is zero hints at how he's paying for anything. I saw a very funny post about the idea of his Peter Parker like always borrowing a bit of money here and there off of Frank, or like Frank generally being a bit of his sugar daddy. But yeah, there's just no hint at where he's got this money from, and he was just straight up doing Spider-Man as a job 24/7, just not being fucking paid for it. And I think my final point for today is problem solving skills and pattern recognition. Like I said, whilst they haven't quite mastered the skill of using pattern recognition to see the bigger picture of their own actions, they do use it to figure out who the bad guy is and what they're doing and where they will be and how to defeat them, that sort of shit. Lots of fast paced strategy, brain work, always problem solving of when their equipment, Spider-Man equipment like gear fails to work. A lot of that is in Brand New Day as well, as he is growing and changing into a new Spider-Man, trying to get his equipment to work and figure out what the problem is, how they're going to solve that, what they're going to do about it. Again, like, yeah, all the computer and tech work, lots of like heavy research skills. Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker finding all those files that his father left in the suitcase, trying to figure that shit out, which was never fully resolved. Thank you. Fuck you guys for cancelling that Spider-Man series. And again, yeah, Tom Holland's Peter Parker with trying to work out what's happening to him and how to fix it. So yeah, not a massively long video today, but I just wanted to put it together because I just really I've had this feeling for a long time, as I said in my like first Spider-Man reaction video, that like I have wanted to talk about Spider-Man for a long time and have a lot of thoughts about them being autistic and shit, but just didn't really know where to start or where to go with that kind of content. So I've eased my way into it with the reaction video, then the spoiler review video, and then now the reasons why I think live action Peter Parker is autistic. So you are welcome. Feel free to add your own thoughts and reasons why you think Peter Parker is autistic, or any of the other Spider people as well. You're welcome to like chip in your thoughts on the other Spider people, because I did not know that there's a new like Spider Noir coming or already out. so I haven't seen that. I have seen the like two Miles Morales films, the Spider Verse ones, whatever the fuck. I think I've only seen them once, and there's a lot going on in those films. There's a lot of Spider people in those films, and I haven't really read the comics. I've only read a few of these Spider-Man and Deadpool comics last year, I think. So that's my video. Like I said, feel free to tell me your thoughts in the comments as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe to come back. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.